Good evening. Thank you all for being here. It's nice to have a in-person audience as well. This is the open session meeting for the Franklin-McKinley School Board. We'll start with item 3, general matters. Item 3.01, the land acknowledgement statement, which I will read now. We acknowledge that the Franklin-McKinley School District and our schools are located in the Muwekma Ohlone Nation, the sovereign nation and original people of the skies, land, and waters where we learn and work. The Muwekma Ohlone people are the stewards of these lands and of the teaching and learning that comes from and responds to the needs of the land and the people who share it. May our daily lives and work, learning, teaching, and community engagement support the evolving vision of the Muwekma Ohlone for their community and these lands. We will now go to item 3.02, the flag salute. And I will ask Board Member Sanchez, can you lead us in the flag salute today? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice. Thank you, Board Member Sanchez. We will now go to item 3.02, approve, disapprove additions to the agenda. Board members? Hearing none, we will go to item 3.04, approve, disapprove order of the agenda. Hearing none, we will go to item 3.05, report of action taken in closed session. Superintendent Cruz.
The board, 4 votes in favor and 1 abstention, approved the May 25th, 2021 closed session minutes. There are no other actions to report.
Thank you, Superintendent Cruz. We will now go to item 4, oral communications. Item 4.01, oral communications. Members of the public may address the board on any issue within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board or agenda items. Members of the public may also address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of the items. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. No action can be taken on any agenda items at this time. Questions may be referred to the administration or put on a future agenda. Do you have any public comments at this time?
We have members of the public that have registered as attendees under item 501 and 502. There's one that is NA, so I'm going to ask the NA to speak during this particular part of the agenda, and her name is Roxana Calderon Morales. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and offer your public comment.
Roxana, do you wish to provide public comment at this time?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know. That was the only one during this item.
Yes, the others are 501, 502, and I'm not sure if they just registered to come and congratulate, or they're part of those that are being recognized. So when we get to that, we can write their names.
Right, now to the fun stuff. Item 5, recognition. We will start with item 5.01, the Classified Employee of the Year Awards. We have our Assistant Superintendent.
So what we would like is if the board could come up to the front. We won't shake hands, but we will certainly recognize, and then we'll take a picture with our employees of the year that are here. Assistant Superintendent of HR will also read the names of all the schools that have submitted their recognition of both the certificate and classified employees of the year for the site. And from those emerged the 2 finalists for the district who are here joining us this evening. So if I could have the board come up to the front and we can proceed with that. So we will start with the classified employees of the year, and then we will, 502 will be certificated employees of the year.
Good evening. It's my honor to publicly recognize the following employees. From Bridges Academy, Martha De Ruiz. From CCA, Roxana Calderon Morales. From Captain Jason Dahl, Francisco Castro. From Franklin, Maria del Rosario Vargas. From Hellier, Brenda Armstrong. From Kennedy, Elia Gomez de Cervantes. From Lerone College Prep, Ann Lay. From McKinley, Evelyn Torres. From Meadows, Norma Ramirez. From Ramblewood, Patricia Ramirez. From Santee, Elsie Martelli. From Shirakawa, Juan Uribe. From Stonegate, Amor Roldan Wiley. From Sylvandale, Maria Castillo. From Windmill Springs, Marianne Courtney. And last but not least, from our district office and our classified employee of the year, if Socorro Martinez could please come forward. Socorro sets a very high standard in all that she does. She is organized and always on point, whether or not she is scheduling or completing a task. Socorro is one of the most compassionate and caring individuals that you will ever come into contact with. She knows and understands the differences between students' technical needs and works to make sure all get their devices in a timely manner. Congratulations. All right, and on to our Certificated Employee of the Year awards. The name of the district honoree is then forwarded to the Santa Clara County Office of Education for county awards presented in the fall. From Bridges Academy, Baljit Desai. From CCA, An T. Mai. From Captain Jason Dahl, Crystal Puentes. From Franklin, Anthony Alvarado. From Hellier, Svetlana Bizuev. From Lerone, Loretta B. Halter. From McKinley, Melody Sue. From Meadows, Joyce Duong. From Ramblewood, Melissa Balamurugan. From Santee, Imelda Murillo. From Shirakawa, Christine Simonson. From Stonegate, Aaron McFadden. From Sylvandale, Trung Tran. From Windmill Springs, Mariana Moore. And last but not least, our Kennedy honoree and district honoree, Mr. Alan Wall. Please come forward. Mr. Wall connects with students and with parents to bring family along in the work he is doing. His connections with students are personal and academic. He understands that he needs to gain the trust of the family to best reach his students. Alan created and maintains a garden on the Kennedy School site. He has committed a significant amount of time, including summer, to maintain the garden. The garden offers enrichment opportunities to Kennedy students that many of them may not otherwise have. He is our greatest cheerleader. Congratulations. One more, retirees. Whether management, certificated, or classified, the focus has been to meet the needs of the children and to provide them with the best education possible. It is my pleasure to thank the following retirees. From our classified staff, we have Annette Hedman from Ramblewood with 25 years. From Hellier, Renee Gonzalez with 18 years. From our certificated staff, Stonegate has Keela Murchison with 17 years. Also from Stonegate, Aaron McFadden with 32 years. From Shirakawa, Valerie Peters with 4 years. And Patricia Moncrief with 19 years. From Lerone, Loretta B. Halter with 24 years. From Kennedy, Vanarite Lam with 20 years. And from Dahl, Carolyn Sumida with 39 years. And last but not least, from management, we have Norma Martinez Palmer with 3 years.
So Norma, we have Martinez. The districts, I guess. Congratulations once again, and thank you for joining us to be able to honor and celebrate our award-winning staff as well as our retirees. We will now go to item 3.0 or 5.04, the recognition and appreciation of.
Board President, we do have those that had signed up, so I'm not sure if they, again, if they had signed up for just to be on Zoom with us or if they wanted to offer public comment. So.
So if any of the following individuals wish to make public comment, I'll start with the first four. I'll start with the first four, and then if you wish to make public comment, we'll go in that order to unmute yourself to make public comment if you wish. So we have Svetlana Biswith. We have Emilda Murillo, Anne Lay, Melody Sue, and on my. So in that order, if you wish to make a public comment, I'll start with the first individual again. Svetlana, would you like to make a public comment? Emilda, would you like to make a public comment? Anne Lay? The first individual.
Raise your hand.
Okay, so Svetlana, if you'd like to unmute yourself. It should allow you to unmute yourself at this time.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The first time doing this way. I just wanted to thank Franklin-McKinley being here for 15 years. It's been an amazing experience, and Hellier has been a family for me. And I'm really grateful for being in the Hellier family this year, and grateful for being representing the Teacher of the Year there, for being serving our special education students. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Onlay, would you like to make a public comment? And then we have some phone numbers. So if your number ends in 6264, if you wish to make a public comment, I'll allow you to do that at this time. Yes, so if you want to dial *9 to unmute yourself, you should be able to make a public comment. And 6264. Also 3564, if you'd like to make a public comment, please select *9. And finally, the number ending in 9003, if you wish to make a public comment at this time, please select *9. And I'll just provide a final opportunity for Imelda Murillo or Melody Sue. If you'd like to make a public comment. And there's also Joyce Duong, Mariana Moore. Either of you would like to make a public comment?
If you raised your hand, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
By selecting *9 if you're dialing in. *6, I apologize. *6 if you'd like to make a public comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to attend this board meeting and also hear about the folks who are being honored and retiring today. My name is Patrick Armstrong, and I just want to note that Franklin-McKinley, the work that you all do at the district and all of the folks that you've mentioned, the retirees and the folks who have been honored, as community members, we're incredibly proud of all of them and all of you. And I want to specifically highlight Brenda Armstrong for her service and work in the leading the cafeteria and food service at the school that she's at, and making sure that the students are fed and the community is taken care of over the course of the pandemic. The work that she did always went over and beyond, and I wanted to make sure that I said that publicly, that we both appreciate her and we appreciate you all for allowing us this space. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Thank you for those comments. We will now go to item 5.04, the recognition and appreciation of our choral program.
Yes, thank you, Board President. We heard from the choral program a couple months ago, and the great work that they've been doing all year long. and the number of students that they've supported all year long in our in-person learning hubs. And we wanted to just publicly bring forward the choral program this year and acknowledge them publicly for all the great work and the dedication that from their director, who is here with us today, America Aguirre, and all the Cassies and all the site leads. And they've just been invaluable to our district, our families, our students, and helping us have them be connected, having them be on our side, helping our families that otherwise would not be able to provide that safe space and support because they're having to go to work or otherwise. So we just wanted to be able to do this publicly. America, if you could come forward. I see another choral staff member over there. They represent over 100 staff that have been supporting our students, our families, and we are internally grateful for the commitment and just the support that you've provided us this year. So we wanted to do this publicly and in this forum.
We'll get a quick picture if that's okay. We just like to.
Well, I just want to, can you hear me? I just want to thank everybody. I think the partnership, I've always said this, within Catholic Charities and this district has always been amazing. We've been in the district for over 30 years. I myself have been in the district for 24 years, January. I tell everybody I started when I was 10. But it's been an amazing journey, a partnership that we've always had. And during this time of the pandemic, the partnership really showed. I think I'm very proud to be part of this district. I said it to Superintendent Cruz that not many other school districts opened their doors and you guys did. So I really appreciate that to our students because we're here to support them. We're here to really make sure that they continue learning and working side by side with our teachers online and with every our staff. We were there for them because that's why we're here. So I appreciate you and everybody that the work that you guys have done and supporting us, and we hope that we continue working together for many, many years, even after I retire in a couple more years. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I just, again, our deepest gratitude to America, your entire team, and all of our choral staff. As a teacher, I know just how, challenging these circumstances have been, and certainly for our families and students. And so being able to know that our students had a place to go, at the height of the pandemic, even just a safe space to be able to connect with another, adults and other students. So thank you for helping us be able to provide those opportunities for them and that sense of continuity. We will now go to item 6, public hearing. And we will start with item 6.01, the public board hearing for our local control accountability plan for the 2021-2022 school year, as well as the annual update for 2019 through 2021. Palmer.
Good evening, everyone, and I am going to take off my mask. I think I can do this better if I'm. So good evening, everyone. This is our public hearing for our local control accountability plan and new annual update and the new LCAP. So to help you with the information I'm going to share with you, I'll just tell you that think of it as in 3 parts. So the first part is the annual update for 2019-20, which sounds like it was so long ago. But what happened was that when we were hit with the pandemic and we closed schools in the year 2021, we weren't required to write an LCAP. And so we now are required as a district, like other districts in the state of California, to go back and evaluate and analyze what happened in 2019-20 and what did we learn from that. So that's the first part. The second part is we're in 2021. So we had to write a learning continuity plan, an LCP. And so I presented that to you early in the year. So now we are being asked to share with our board, well, how did we do this year with distance learning and with how we taught our kids during the pandemic? The third part then is the looking forward. What do we have in store for us in 21, 22 and beyond? And so what I've done today is just, I'm highlighting just a few things because as you saw in your board item, the documents are lengthy and you might even say a little dense. Certainly if you didn't get an opportunity to look at them, I'm going to give you kind of the highlights of those, of what's in those documents. I'm trying to figure out how to move this forward. Do I just hit the space bar? It's not moving. I'm doing the arrow too. I'll do here. How about if I do the mouse? Oh, okay, there it goes. Thank you, everyone. So I don't think I need to remind us what the LCAP is, but just for the audience that's listening, the LCAP, the Local Control Accountability Plan, is a 3-year plan that every district develops to delineate how they plan to spend their local control accountability dollars. What are their goals and what are their actions? And the whole purpose of this plan is local control, that we get to decide as a school district what's most important to us and what we want to do moving forward. The requirements of this have remained the same. They are to be aligned to the state priorities. We must engage in conversations with our stakeholders. The 2 committees that we're required to interact with are the Parent Advisory Committee. In our district, it was known as the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, which is made up of teachers, parents, classified, bargaining unit members. It's a nice representation of different voices. And then our District English Learner Advisory Committee. Today is the public hearing. At the next meeting, hopefully giving you time to review those documents. You will approve it. It then goes to the county, and then we are required to post it on our website so that any community member can see what Franklin-McKinley is all about. So let's start with the first part, which is the 2019-20 LCAP annual update. As I said, that seems so long ago. This LCAP was written before I started my time in Franklin-McKinley, and so there was some goals that were already established, and these were the 5 goals that you see in front of you. And so what I decided to do that is to give you kind of where we are with, did we meet our expected outcomes? Briefly, for number 1, we are always compliant with our facilities and we are always compliant with our teacher assignments. We may have maybe some teachers that are not fully credentialed, but they always end up being credentialed with the state of California. So we are always compliant with making sure that we have a credentialed teacher in every classroom. Our second goal around facilities, we use the, I don't know what FIT stands for, facilities. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Thank you. Just to make sure I'm sure about that. So that showed that our district was in good repair overall. Our third goal is around literacy and math. And under that goal, we are looking at our English learner progress, our progress in reading, our progress in math. And if you remember, some time ago, I presented to you the results of our California dashboard, and we actually met our goal for our English learner progress indicator. We were medium, if you remember, and we actually did better than the state. So just want to remember that that was something to celebrate. We have not met our academic ELA and math targets for the past 5 years. And if you also remember, I've shown you lots of graphs where our data is pretty flat. locally, with our local measures, such as the Renaissance Star, which we our benchmark assessments in our writing, we did not meet that goal. However, we did meet it for our English learners. So our English learners are thriving and actually are learning and showing nice progress in writing, reading, and on the early literacy assessment for reading in grades 1 to 3. Moving on to goal 4, which is about students feeling connected and safe. We met our attendance goal for all of our students, for our Asian populations, for our EL students, and for our socially disadvantaged students. We met that goal for our suspension rate for all students as well. And we maintained at the chronic absenteeism rate. So when we say we met, that just means that we met that year's target. And for attendance, we wanted to increase annually by 0.02%, and we did that for that year. And for our suspension rates, we wanted to be decreasing by 0.3% annually, and we did that year. So we have some things to celebrate, but there's still work to be done. So I'm going backwards. So I'm going to skip this slide because the more I looked at it, what I wanted to do was I wanted to give the board and the community an idea of how much we spent on each goal. But when I looked at goal number 1 and I shared it with Mr. Van, I said, that number seems awfully high. So I feel that we need to research that a little bit more, but I think it's safe to say that most of our funding goes towards improving the academic achievement of our students and making sure that they have the materials that they need. So now I'm going to move to the second part, which is the learning continuity plan, which is the one for this year, 2021. And that plan was not written or designed like a regular LCAP, if you will. Instead of having goals, we had activities that we needed to respond to during the pandemic. So the first area or section was called in-person instructional offerings. And we as a district chose not to open our doors to our students for safety reasons. And so we did not have to report anything there. However, I did go ahead and include in there that we did on a volunteer basis have students return. And so we offered that in April. Distance learning was what we were all about in Franklin-McKinley. So I wrote about continuity of learning. We provided one-on-one devices for all of our students. We provided hotspots and access. We partnered with outside organizations. We kind of took an all hands on deck approach. If you remember early fall, we moved quickly to make sure that our students had the materials that they needed, whether it was a device, internet access, or books. So we made sure students had books to take home, workbooks to have at home, and extra copies. And so a lot of our funding went to making sure that we had plenty of materials, including crayons, paper, pencils, paints, that kind of thing, so that students could have materials at home to learn with. Our other success was that our roles and responsibilities changed. We took on things that we had never thought we would do. We learned to do our work differently. Our teachers learned to teach in a different mode. The schools were equipped with site mentors. I think each site had 2 site mentors. I know in my department, we certified some teachers with Google to make sure that every site had a Google certified teacher. So we moved quickly to make sure that we had supports out there for our staff. Some of the challenges around distance learning was pupil engagement. There was still, and there still is, a challenge with a very small percentage of students who either don't have their camera on or have their camera on and are not engaged or are not attending. It's a very small percentage, but I think that in talking with our stakeholder groups, they said this was a challenge, is to constantly be reaching out to families and trying to find ways to engage our students and to find out what supports that they needed. The other challenge was security. Jason has shared with me that there were break-ins and there was, equipment loss and that kind of thing that comes when your school buildings are empty. In the area of pupil learning loss, we quickly in the fall used some of our learning loss mitigation funding and offered at every site what I call extended learning opportunities. It was ELO before the state adopted their ELO acronym. We had it here in Franklin-McKinley. And so every site on a volunteer basis identified teachers who would be willing to teach after their synchronous time, small groups of students to provide them with more support. This could be individual support, this could be small group support. And what I did is I emphasized that it needed to be English learners. It needed to be students who were academically struggling or students who needed more support social emotionally. So every site identified teachers and they provided that support. I had some schools that had as many as maybe 8 teachers, and I have one school that had 100. I'm sorry, 8, maybe 12 students, and one school had 194 students that got extra learning opportunity help. So that's something we're very proud of. We also, under the direction of Dr. Feldman, Sarah Feldman, offered a newcomer program because we were really worried about students who didn't speak English, who were new to the country. So Taylor helped us find a list of 133 kids, and we invited them to work with retired teachers to provide them with after-school support using a very basic curriculum. And so we have 88 students that consistently join their teachers online for that basic vocabulary and cultural acculturation type approach in the lessons. Sarah told me today that we even have a student that's had to move to, God, it's so far away, I can't remember the country, but anyway, it's a country far away and I can't remember what it is right now. And they're still zooming in right now because they still feel connected to their teacher. We offered professional development. Whether it was virtual and some of it was required and some of it was optional because teachers were feeling very overwhelmed and dedicated to planning their lessons. They've never taught this way. So for many teachers, it was a challenge. And so they needed time to plan. So our professional development was really limited as to what we were going to require and what was going to be optional. So our required training was offered during the day, during their work time, after they met with students, and optional training was held after school, and they were compensated for that. So the challenges that came with pupil learning loss was assessment. It was challenging to truly know what students were learning because when they monitored assessment, they could monitor how the students were performing on their assessments, but sometimes we would hear the parents helping them, the older brother, the older sister, someone at home is helping them. So it was really hard to really gauge, the results on the assessments, but nevertheless, we continue to assess. And the other challenge was that our department gave the teachers priority standards so that they would prioritize, so they wouldn't feel that they needed to teach everything in a grade level, but it was still challenging to prioritize what to teach, especially when teachers were teaching for a very limited time every day. Moving on to the next section on social, emotional, and well-being, lots of kudos to social workers who were available to help with parent outreach. And the social workers actually provided some activities to help students get engaged online. And so that was something that even the parents highlighted as something that they had appreciated this year. And one of the challenges, of course, came that there are still students that were feeling isolated during this school year. Parent and family engagement, the successes are there. Zoom is a big hit. I think the principals are telling us they want to keep Zoom because in some cases, they've had more family engagement that they've had pre-pandemic just because of the efficiency and how easy it is to join a call or to get connected with the school on a Zoom call. Also, Language Line is the on-demand interpretation services. So if a teacher was meeting with a parent or needed to contact a parent who didn't speak their language, Language Line offers, find someone who speaks Cambodian, on the spot, who could provide that interpretation. So that was a big plus for our district. Am I going backwards? Definitely, she's gone now, but Catholic Charities and all of the work that they offered as well for the day program was a big plus. Some of the challenges are there, and that you'll see a trend here. It's just that hard to reach families and the student engagement, and how do you find families to connect with them so that you can figure out, what's going on to get their kids connected. So that was always a challenge. Nutrition, we, according to Jason, 1.4 million meals were served as of March. There was some additional funding that was made available to the district. And then some of the challenges were that not all the families got the information about the meals. And sometimes it was hard to staff the schools in distributing meals, although I think it worked in the end, but I think sometimes it was hard. And that vendors, all the districts were using the same vendors. So sometimes getting your order in was challenging to get the food, the meals that we needed. This is kind of a very dense chart, and I'm not going to go into it in detail, but I did want to share with the board that when you're looking at the expenditures of this year, at the top part of this chart, it shows what we budgeted for and what we ended up spending. The middle chart shows what did not contribute to what we call increased and improved requirements, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The bottom chart shows what we did spend for contributing to increase and improved requirements. So the term increased and improved is a very well-known term in those of us that work on the LCAP, because we have to actually delineate in the LCAP what percentage or what activities in the budget are going towards foster youth, low income, and English learners. So we have to actually identify what activities, what expenditures we have, and we have to make sure that we're meeting a certain percentage of our total LCFF funding towards the services of those students. So just the walk away from this chart is that we definitely budgeted under, and it cost us more money to implement what we had to this year, but we had to do it. We had to, money was a resource that came to us from the state and the federal government, but we needed devices, we bought devices. We needed hotspots, we bought hotspots. We needed after school support from Catholic Charities. The district made those decisions. And so all of this was done in our good faith effort to serve our community. So this chart just paints that picture that the district spent its resources wisely, in my opinion. Trying to go fast here. So I shared at the last meeting when I talked about the Expanded Learning Grant, what influenced our decisions for that ELO grant, and then what is influencing our decisions for the new LCAP. So needless to say, we have to work on our student achievement. I mean, our students are still, this is data from March of 2020 compared to March of 2021, because we only can look at local data. And you can see that when we look at our subgroups, all of our subgroups had a decline, but we also have to remember the kids are being tested in a remote setting. And again, that idea of like, is it really authentic, or is it really giving us a true picture of where the student is at? And also what else is going on in the lives of our students that may influence or impact those results. But this nevertheless is a data point. And again, just showing that our students with disabilities and our English learners actually perform better on the Renaissance Star in reading. So again, we can question whether that's true or not, but I choose to just believe that the kids are learning, and that they're doing well. And so we have a need to continue with educating our students. And I will say that for the next LCAP, instead of saying we're going to go 3 percentage points every year, I decided let's pick a SMART goal. Let's do something that's reasonable and attainable, and let's learn from that and then move forward. For our social emotional skills, at the last meeting, I also shared results from the Panorama survey that also looks at social emotional development. And just on the right-hand side, this was not made available to you at the last meeting, but this shows the components of social emotional skills on that survey. And you can see that 63% of the kids who answered the survey feel they have a growth mindset. 61% of them are socially aware. 65% of them answered favorably that they have self-management skills. But look at the self-efficacy, 47%. That concerns me, just because self-efficacy is just that belief that you can succeed. kind of that term that we hear, grit, persistence. So that's just something that I feel, that needs to be looked at. How do we, develop that in our kids, the belief that they can succeed. The students in 7th and 8th grade, more than the primary grades, feel less connected to school. And that was evident in this survey, as well as the Child's Healthy Kids survey. But the bright spots on this survey is that 80% of them felt that school was fair and a positive place to learn this year and during the pandemic. And that 70% of them felt connected to school, although our upper grade kids may not feel as connected. But overall, the students that took the survey, grades 3 to 8, 70% of them answered favorably that they felt connected to school. So what are we looking forward to for the future? So I decided to just highlight a few things. There's a lot that we've been talking about at the district office and with our principals about next year. We're excited to welcome our students back in person, but we know it's going to be a unique and different year. So the one thing that we're looking forward to is finally implementing multi-tiered systems of support. We've been talking about MTSS for 3 years now. It's now time to get it off the ground. The other that we're talking about lately is the integration of social, emotional, and academics. We can't afford anymore to say, we're going to talk about academics today, and now we'll talk about social, emotional tomorrow. It has to be done together. And so we as teachers have to learn how to integrate that when we're teaching throughout the day. We have to strengthen what we're doing for our English learners and our students with disabilities. We have to keep an eye on that group, and we have to prioritize their needs. And as requested by the board, we have to write a new tech plan. And especially since we've been in a year of distance learning, we now have some devices and we have some skills that we've developed in our kids and our teachers. So let's capitalize on that and really move towards an innovative approach to teaching and learning using technology. So coming up for 2021, and this is part 3 of this presentation, here are our 3 new goals for the LCAP. We don't have 5, we narrowed them down to 3 to keep it easy. And this was just what I did. I decided to have just 3 phrases to help everybody remember what they are. The first one is achievement for all. We want all of our kids to achieve no matter who they are and where they come from. And that means that we have to adopt equity as a principle and a value that shows up in all our work. The second one is positive environment and school culture, and that's for adults and kids. And the last one, of course, is our family and community engagement. Side note, my last meeting with the district advisory committee, we looked at the parent policy and we had a wonderful conversation about parent involvement versus parent engagement. And that committee actually said, let's stop using the term parent involvement and let's talk about parent engagement, because parent engagement sounds more inclusive and it actually acknowledges what parents bring to the school site as opposed to just the school site dictating what parents should be doing. So that was a very exciting conversation that I hope continues. So our new LCAP has the following metrics. I don't need to read them to you, but I'll just be brief and just highlight what they are. So we're going to continue with reading and math, and we're going to continue to use Renaissance Star because we didn't use SBAC for obvious reasons, but the district, some of the teachers are interested in looking at a different benchmark. Renaissance has been used for years now, and so they're just interested to see what's out there that is more, that gives them more relevant data. So, but for now, we're going to continue to use Renaissance Star. And again, like I told you before, we're going to change our outcome to something attainable and reasonable. And so we said, let's try to increase 2 percentage points for all of our kids and all of our subgroups. Our English learners, our hope and our goal is that we will reach the high, on the rating scale, it's the high level, medium high on the state indicator, and that our reclassification rate will always stay at 10% or higher. We also have a responsibility to monitor our reclassified students, and even though they outperform many of our language groups, we want to make sure that we don't forget them, that we continue to support them. And so we're looking at getting 78% of them meeting or exceeding on any of their achievement assessments. For the second goal on positive school environment and school culture, we are looking at the same things: attendance, absenteeism, suspension. We also, side note, we also have to include middle school dropout, even though I didn't put it on here, but when I submitted the LCAP to the county, they said every district K-8 has to have a middle school dropout rate. So that's part of one of our metrics we're going to be, that's in the LCAP. And then for the local indicator, we're looking at the panorama survey, unless the district decides to use a different survey. And we want to increase the number of students on that survey that do well on that we want to see an increase on student connectedness and self-efficacy for the reasons I explained earlier. Parent and family engagement. We want to also continue to have more parents respond on the survey. We had about 2,100 respond this time. So our goal is to continue to encourage parents so that we can hear their voice. We also want to find out from parents in what ways they can participate beyond the back to school night parent teacher conference requirement. Like, what are some other ways that they can participate in their school, in the schooling of their children? There is some interest with some of our schools, as you heard last week at the school plan study session, to have organizations like BICE. So funny, I thought the same thing at the district level. So I was thinking that if we can set a goal of at least having 3 parent institutes throughout the district, and then increasing the number of parents every year who actually go through that program or a similar program, we're building leadership, and we're also building knowledge and skills in our parents in our own community. The 4th bullet is about compliance. And I know it's a compliance item, but the more I look at compliance and why compliance exists, there's a good reason for it. Every school is supposed to have a school site council and an English learner advisory committee. And as I look at the notes and the minutes, and as I visit schools, they really struggle to get parents to take on leadership roles on those committees. And sometimes they even struggle to have parents serve on those committees. So I really feel that we need to build the capacity of our principals and our teachers to help facilitate those committees so that parents actually feel they're meaningful and that they truly have a voice and that they get to decision making. So I've put it into the LCAP as a goal that we're going to be 100% compliant and that we're going to make sure that that we're doing a good job. And then the last metric is around the California dashboard. And at the next meeting, we'll be talking about local indicators, but there is a parent reflection tool in that parent indicator. And these are the 3 areas that are in that reflection tool. And I want to make sure that our district is full or initially implementing in those areas, because right now when I gave the district advisory committee the tool to look at, they rated themselves kind of at the beginning stage for those 3. So I think that with some of these activities that I've talked about, we can improve on getting parents to feel that they are true partners and that they're involved in decision making at their schools and at the district level. So just to wind up my presentation, you have this document in your board item. This is the executive summary of everything in the LCAP. So I've explained kind of the goals and the metrics, but here are the actions, and this is how much money we are allocating to those actions. So I'm going to go quickly through the slides and only highlight a few things that I think you should know. So on this first one, this is on goal number 1. You will notice that there are some items here that you might have heard last time around the expanded learning grant. So we're committed to MTSS, and we're committed to providing every school with a student support specialist for academic intervention as we return back in person. And we are committed to continuing with Greenfield Lexia, because we're seeing that the students in the schools that are using that program as a supplemental program are showing some really good progress. On the second page or the second slide, some things to note here is our commitment to our paraeducators as required in the ELO, to make sure that our classrooms who have paraeducators they're long enough to be with their students and beyond to plan with teachers. So you can see that investment is over $1 million. We also explicitly called out ELD and dual immersion. That's something we have to do, but I feel that if we put it as a separate action item, we're going to pay attention to it and we're going to evaluate the progress on that. So that is why we decided to put that in there as a separate action item. On the next slide, you'll see the technology integration plan. There's over $200,000 that's been set aside for that. That includes committee work and hiring consultants to work with us on the development of that plan, but also to help us transition back to in-person using technology. And you'll also see the addition of another computer tech being paid out of ELO funds that can help us with the infrastructure since we have so much technology now. The sites get some LCFF dollars and get Title I money, so that's line 23. And we also are a district that is in significant disproportionality for the overrepresentation of Latinx Hispanic students with specific learning disability. So we worked with the SELPA that we are now required to share our LCAP with the SELPA. And so they suggest, when I told them that I included it, they were actually thought that was great because instead of a separate plan, we're saying as part of our LCAP, we're going to hold ourselves accountable for what's in that plan. Getting lost here. The second goal on school environment and school culture, part of the MTSS work is looking at social emotional learning development and then also equipping every school with a social worker. So you'll see that on line 2 of that slide, over $1 million for that. And the parents, that is something that parents really wanted when we were talking to stakeholders throughout the year. The other thing that parents or the other request that parents made loud and clear over and over is when kids come back, I want them to have music. I want them to have art. I want them to move. I want them to have physical education. So with the extra resources that we're getting, we have allocated some funding for that and are working right now with outside vendors to make sure that our schools and our students have that access. I noticed there was an addition of line 10, the extra custodial support. I don't know if anybody wants to speak to that. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, no, I added that is in alignment with what we hear from our staff and our parents in regards to a safe school environment. Obviously, right now during the pandemic, but also just in general to make sure that we have clean and safe facilities. And so we've been looking at so there's currently a consultant. The board approved the contract some meetings ago that is currently doing an analysis of our staffing, our practices that will lead to increased staffing that will be needed in order for us to maintain our facilities in a greater way and provide a safe school environments for our students and our staff. That's what that item is for.
Great, thank you. So now moving to our third item, which is family and community engagement. I just want to highlight that the leadership or the PICE Institute and that kind of activity is something that I've allocated some funding for. We're going to continue our partnership with the Family Children's Initiative and the First 5 Resource Center to provide access to the community for young children, for families to get access to those resources. That's a partnership that we honor. Our parent liaisons, we couldn't do our work without them. They are key for the work that we do in the district with our culturally and linguistically diverse community. We also have a partnership with Eastside Union on ESL classes. I think I might want to come back as an ESL teacher, just putting it out there. But it's not much, but we support that effort and it's our parents. And so I just felt like that needed to be part of our LCAP, some of our activities. And then of course, I talked about the compliance with the school and governance parent committees and making sure that we really are doing a good job with that. And then I talked about increase and improved services. So our unduplicated count in Franklin-McKinley is 81.7%. That means almost 80% of our student population is on free and reduced lunch or English learner or foster. And so that's a high percentage. So it's easy to justify and say, most of these activities are principally directed to serve these students. So to meet compliance with the LCAP and with the state, that's around $16 million, which is what you see. And honestly, it's more than $16 million that we have written in the LCAP that are principally directed for that population. I did this on my own and I didn't have to. In the LCAP at the end, I went ahead and included all the other expenditures that are principally directed, just so the community is aware that we're spending much more than this because these are the needs of our students. So just in finishing, I was trying to think of how to end LCAP presentation without, overwhelming you. And I just found this picture. I was looking at Franklin-McKinley kids' pictures and I saw this and I saw the faces of these students and the face, I guess it's a teacher. And I just thought, what a great thing to have the kids back in school, to welcome them back, to have a new LCAP and to start just a whole new narrative in Franklin-McKinley. So thank you. Any questions that I can answer? Because I'm sure that I didn't cover everything.
Okay, I have just two easy questions. I didn't see it on the other attachments that you provided because you provide a lot of data,
I know.
a lot of information, which was fine, but I didn't see it in there. Do we know our middle school dropout rate?
It's 0.
Okay, I didn't see that, so I figured if we didn't have one.
No, because I found out about this after I prepared for this. And when I was getting it ready I got feedback from the county, but it's definitely, I think it's in the LCAP. Now you're making me nervous. I better go and check, but it is 0, but we do have to track it. But I checked with Patricia and we don't have any records of kids dropping out.
The county wants that number because there is a middle school dropout rate in the county?
I guess it's required. I don't know.
Yeah,
to be
so
perfectly
the
honest.
way they define a dropout, just like in high school, but obviously it happens more in that realm, is that if a student is withdrawn from our district and they don't enroll in any California school, because every student has a unique number that when they enroll anywhere in California, they pop up.
Mhm.
And so then they say, okay, this student withdrew from Franklin-McKinley but enrolled in Alum Rock, then that's fine. When a student doesn't enroll anywhere, it could be that they went another country or another state.
Mhm.
They're considered a dropout for us because they didn't pop up in any school after they withdrew from us. And so obviously it happens a lot more frequently in high school because they are students that completely drop out and never enroll than in middle school. But what I'm hearing is that we're having to track that in a document now. It always gets tracked when we submit our file annually through CalPADS. And that's how they reconcile all those enrollments.
So we reported 0 then?
Yeah.
Okay, so then my second question is not related to this, is on slide 22, line number 9 is we have $10,000 budget for restorative justice practices. That's pretty low? Isn't that pretty low?
It is. So I have a certain a budget to work with. And so we usually have carryover money in our district. Like we know that we're not going to use all the Title I money because schools struggled to spend it this year because we were in distance learning. So I have to put a number just to hold, just to have a placeholder, if you will. But certainly Jennifer has more than $10,000 to spend on restorative justice. So I just put a number there.
Okay.
It's going to cost more than that. And in fact, if you look at a lot of these actions, like even professional development for the district, it's really low. But we always count on our carryover money from Title I and Title III and Title IV to complete all of our activities.
So how much are we planning on spending?
I'll let
Do we know?
Mr. Cruz answer. that.
So in terms of total contracts and with the professional development costs, I would anticipate that we're going to be around $100,000 in next year's cost in just supporting restorative practices.
Right, okay, so this is, keeping in mind, this is just the LCAP
Yes.
budget, not the total budget with the
Right.
district. So
Right, correct,
this is the amount of money that's associated coming from LCAP,
correct.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Got it,
So
okay.
that's always my challenge because I only have a certain amount of LCF, a certain amount of Title I, Title II, Title III. And so I have to kind of figure out you know, I probably could have put a higher number there, but then I would have taken it from somewhere else. So I knew that money, that number was low, but I also didn't have any idea how much it would be. But I know also that there's other grants that the district receives that are not included in the LCAP.
With our state now having a big surplus, I mean, billions, do we anticipate receiving any more LCFF money additional?
That's coming up in the next presentation.
I think Jason has some good news
Come on,
there.
Jason. Okay, thank you. That's it. That's all I have.
Board members, any additional questions? And I know we do have some public comments.
Thank you, Norma. Very extensive presentation. There was a little, you know,
Mhm.
was that something looking at next year that?
That's a very good question. In the fall, the principals and the staff agreed that we need to do baseline data in the fall. Because we want to have the kids in front of us taking the assessments and we want to know where they're at. But we don't want to do that off the bat. We want to welcome our kids back. We want to get them used to school and then we want to assess them. And then we can always, according to the county, we can always go back to this LCAP and we can change our baseline data. Mhm. And that's what I would recommend.
Thank you.
Mhm.
If I could- And again, I just want to echo, you know, Norma has put an extensive time and effort and the LCAP. It has grown and grown and grown from the first version of the LCAP. You know, and she's gone above and beyond what the requirement is. Because here, you know, we do believe in that all funds are needing to be accounted for, right? And so you see in the LCAP, the ELO, which you approved last time, you will see the ESSER funds, you see title, all these federal funds that are not part of the plan. But I think it is important for the board and the public to see how all the funds are being used to support the overall goals of the school district. And that just takes a lot of time. And I want to thank Norma for that because it is time consuming and it does take her to make sure that, you know, she's working with business and making sure that we have accounted for every penny, because it's important for transparency purposes, for ensuring that the funds are directly tied to actions that are leading to student outcomes. So thank you for all of that work.
Thank you.
I just want to add to that, Norma, that, you know, just your effort to make this an accessible, like something that we can actually use. I think that really came across and I appreciate that because I know it's something that our staff can continue to refer back to and utilize, and our site administrators as well, and crafting those goals in a way that, you know, anyone can understand and anyone can know what we are working towards as a district. I really appreciate that. Just so much that went into this. I like to ask my questions ahead of time and I was blown away. I really, everything was captured here so well. So
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So we'll go to the public comments. Okay, so Maria Gomez, we do see your hand was raised. Do you wish to make a public comment on this item?
Yes, I would like to make a public comment.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Let me pull up my document. I had typed it up to make sure I kept it to 3 minutes. Okay, so good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide LCAP input. I just want to start by thanking the school board for all the ways that the school board has operated with an equity lens for English learners throughout this very challenging school year. Equity is something that's always been important to me. It's why I went into teaching, so thank you for that. I want to just start by sharing a little bit about myself. So my name is Maria Gomez. I am currently a first grade teacher at Kennedy. I'd like to provide some feedback tonight on the proposed LCAP, but specifically my concerns are about the need for high quality ELD curriculum and ELD professional development for primary grades at non-SEAL schools. I know that's very specific. So I've been teaching for about 20 years, many of those years in Los Angeles with high numbers of ELs. For the past 9 years, I've taught in FMSD. During those years, I've participated on various committees, curriculum and adoption committees, the district advisory committee. This year, I joined the DLAC committee as a rep for Kennedy. Outside of teaching, I am an Ellie Fellow with Californians Together, which is an organization that does advocacy work for English learners statewide. On a personal note, I personally came to the US at a very young age. I know the experience and struggles of learning a new language. And I very much see myself in my students and the students that I have the privilege to teach each and every day. When I interact with EL parents, I also see the struggles of my own parents, you know, what they face, wanting the best education for their kids and a way out of poverty as a child of farm workers. So in kind of getting to the point, recently during our final DAC meeting, our district advisory committee meeting, I was able to share my concerns with Dr. Martinez-Palmer, specifically about having high quality curriculum at non-SEAL schools, and specifically for those lower grades. So as you guys are aware, schools across our district, they have approached ELD in different ways. Way back in 2016, there was an ELD task force in this district. I was invited to be part of it. At the time, I again shared my concerns about the lack of high quality ELD curriculum. However, back then, Dr. Kemp's plan focused almost entirely on lowering LTELs in the upper grades and ignored the fact that we needed to get at the root of the issue by targeting the primary grades. So last spring, after many years of pilots, our district finally adopted Journeys. I agree that our district needed to push forward and adopt an ELA curriculum, but the ELD component is very weak and it doesn't provide students with high quality ELD lessons, which is a big deal to me. You know, English learners is something that I'm very passionate about. ELs in K1 grades, they need a lot of opportunities for structured oral and written language practice. Journeys simply doesn't provide this. I've been told that adding a new curriculum may possibly burden teachers, but I respectfully disagree. I believe that having a high quality designated ELD curriculum will save teachers from scrambling for resources to provide high quality ELD instruction, as well as do what's in the best interest of our English learners. So lastly, I just want to urge school board members to take a second look at the LCAP and try to help them find a way to ensure that English learners and teachers at non-SEAL schools have high quality ELD curriculum that our ELs deserve. And like you, I also worry about how this year has impacted English learners and other marginalized groups in our district. So I strongly urge board members to please take a second look at the LCAP and find a way to ensure that English learners, specifically in the primary grades, have a high quality designated ELD program. You know, non-SEAL schools, they do the SEAL thing, but those of us in non-SEAL schools, we really don't have high quality designated ELD curriculum or PD for that matter. And I think that our students deserve it, families deserve it, and teachers. So I'm hoping that that's something that you guys can take a little more, another look at to ensure that we have high quality ELD across our schools. So that's basically what I wanted to share. And I just super quickly wanted to echo what board member, what Rudy said about restorative practices. I would also like to see a bigger focus on anti-racist PD and curriculum across the district. So, so thank you for asking about that tonight. And thank you all so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Maria. Great. Board members, is there any other comments or questions? item?
So
There's
this is
no
just
action.
this is
Okay.
just a public hearing, and so the board will officially take it into consideration for approval at the next board.
We will now go to item 6.02, the public hearing for physical 2021-2022 proposed budget for the Franklin-McKinley School District. Superintendent.
So as board president, we do have a speaker for 602. Actually, this is the public hearing. We this time separated the presentation to 701. So do you want to take public comment since it is the public hearing and then allow
Sure, yes.
the
let's do that,
superintendent
please.
Van
So
to do the presentation?
I believe we have Scott Schulenson. Scott, you ready to make your public comment?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm actually going to speak about the three things I had signed up for tonight. I'm going to just do them all right now since you can hear me now, and with technology, you never know about later. First off, I do want to congratulate our certificated teachers of the year and our classified folks of the year and all of our retirees and really everyone who made it through this challenging year. So I'm glad we're pretty much getting close to that finish line. Second off, regarding the budget presentation and public hearing, I just want to draw to everyone's attention that we are at a high watermark for our ending balance at $29 million. I'm pretty sure that'll be a record for our district for the highest ending balance we've ever had in a year. And, you know, overall, that's a good thing. None of us could have expected the amount of resources coming to districts from both the state and the federal government. And we will make use of these funds next year in the robust plans that have been discussed and approved in previous board meetings. So I don't think it's a bad thing that we have this reserve, but it's certainly, it is nice to have a cushion after so many years of cuts. And I know that cuts are still being discussed because of declining enrollment and other factors, which segues into the last piece I want to bring up, which is consent item 9.07, the Volaire contract. And if that $168,000 over 2 years, I believe, is really going to pay off in terms of attracting students to our district, then maybe this is money well spent. It's hard for me to assess that. But given the high price tag and the fact that the district is still looking at cuts to the certificated bargaining unit in some of the future years, maybe not so much this coming year, but the out years, I think that the district certainly needs to be very careful when approving funds that are, as we say, fairly far from the classroom, hiring these consultants, as I would think is the correct term, to support with communication in the district. It is a hefty price tag. And so I just want to make sure that this, that we are getting our bang for the buck, so to speak, and getting our money's worth with this very large expenditure. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, Scott. So there aren't any other public comments at this time, so we'll go ahead. Superintendent, if you're ready for the. Oh, that's right. Thank you. So that was the opening of the public hearing, and that is the closing of the public hearing. So we took comments.
So I have a lot of slides tonight, so I'm going to try to take my mask off so I don't pass out while I'm talking through these slides. Just use the clicker to move forward. Okay. Good evening, board members. What a difference a year makes. When we started talking about budgets last year, this time, we were looking at cuts of 7.4 million in 2021, 9 million in 21-22, and another 10.5 million in 22-23. Unfortunately, the economy of our state has changed dramatically. And tonight I get to share some good news about additional funding sources that are going to help our school district out. Obviously, Dr. Norma Martinez Palmer had a great presentation showing how we're going to utilize these one-time funds to help support our kids and our staff. And I hopefully you'll appreciate the information that's presented here that supports that information. Here are the goals for tonight. Of course, Q&As at the end, but if you have any questions, you can ask them before, during, and after the presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. The goal here is to highlight some of the May revise that was presented to us through School Services of California and other advocates for school districts, and then talk about what that means for our district and our multi-year projection. I always like to remind us of where we are in the budget cycle. Just as a note of information, I'm sure all of the board members know this already. In January, the governor prepares his budget proposal for the state of California. That makes its way through the legislature. Then in May, he comes up with his May revise based on comments he's received from the legislature. And then between now and June, it's a sprint between figuring out what the governor wants to put forth and get approved versus what the legislature wants to do. This will be very quick this year because we have mostly a Democratic House, but there are some differences, and I'll highlight some of those differences as I go through these slides. We still have one glaring issue with the budget process. The district itself has to approve its own budget before the state adopts its own budget. So there could be some significant changes between the May revise and the adopted budget for the state that may have impacts on the district. Typically, we try to perform an updated multi-year projection and present that in our 45-day budget revision that will usually be presented to the board in August. So I'm sure that the board here has heard a lot of information from CSBA, AXA, EdSource, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go through each one of these slides in detail. I'm going to try to be quick and brief because I know that you've read through the slides and you have a lot of information already. I'll just highlight a couple of items as I go through the slides. In this particular one, as you know, the governor is talking about how the state of California is roaring back. We have a V-shaped recovery in our economy, but it hasn't been a V-shaped recovery for everyone within our community and within our state. There's still a lot of homelessness that needs to be addressed. There are a lot of people that are out of work, and there are a lot of small businesses that are still trying to navigate the safety protocols and get their business back up and running. So as I go through all of the great items relating to the May revise and how that helps education, I can't forget how this V-shaped recovery is not the same for everyone within our community, within our state, and within our nation. So on this particular slide, the governor is talking about how the state has a huge surplus in terms of tax revenue for the state. And that huge surplus is going to be fueling a lot of the new initiatives and one-time objectives for the state. The rainy day fund. Some of you may have heard of this. I've talked about it a couple of times in previous presentations to the board. The rainy day fund is an account that's set up to help us weather any type of downturns in the economy. It's going to be at the point of $15.9 billion in the year 21-22. This has a couple of impacts. The one that's most significant for us is that it kicks in a reserve cap for districts of our size. I'll talk about that more in future slides. So what does it mean to have a roaring economy? The governor's January proposal had $85.8 million billion going into education with a $2.3 billion one-time supplemental payment. Based on all of the additional revenue that's going to be projected for the upcoming years, he is now increasing the Prop 98 funding for education to $93.7 billion based on the May revise. That's a significant sum of money. I'll go through what some of the governor's initiatives are for this additional funding. Before I do that, this is one slide that I think is nice to explore for a little bit. Because there is excess revenue, the GAN limit has been put into effect. The GAN limit basically caps state funding. There's also a GAN limit for school districts as well. We usually don't hit that, but from a state standpoint, they are. So what does that mean? So the excess revenues that are above the GAN limit are actually going to be redistributed to taxpayers of the state of California, as well as the K-14 education programs. So if you've earned up to $75,000 within the year, you get about $1,000 of a tax refund. The last time this happened was in 1987. I wasn't even a resident of the state of California back then, but some of you probably remember that. So in this particular slide, just wanted to capture some of the prior year impacts. As you can see, we're talking about 2019-20 and 2021. There are going to be some adjustments to the funding for education. That's also going to fuel some of the increases in programs for school districts in the year 21-22. So I spoke a little bit about the CAP reserve that's going to be kicked in. Because the rainy day fund has reached 3% of the Prop 98 funding, there is going to be a cap on districts. Our cap of a district of our size is 10%. So our reserve, our unrestricted reserve as a district in year 22-23 can't exceed the 10% cap that's going to be activated for the year 22-23. This only includes funds that are in our assigned and unassigned general fund ending balance. Anything that has been committed by the board, so the board has taken action to reserve those funds for a particular purpose, are not included in that cap. So this slide here has our governor drinking some cola. And cola is a popular term this year because you're going to hear about different types of colas. We have the statutory cola for our district for this year, which is 1.7% for this year. There's also a compound cola. That compound cola is a catch up for last year, as well as this year's statutory cola. Those together add up to about 4.05%. And the reason why we have a catch up is because the COLA was suspended last year. We did not get a COLA increase in terms of our funding as an educational agency. So he's trying to actually use the additional excess revenues that we're receiving this year to make a catch up for school districts in certain programs. And we'll go through some of those programs in a minute. The last thing we have here is the mega COLA. There's an additional almost 1% that's being added to the compounded COLA to create a mega COLA. This COLA is going to be used in the calculation of funding under local control funding formula, LCFF. So here's a nice summary of our funding factors for a district, and based on grade span adjustments, the 9 through 12 obviously are grayed out because we don't have those grades. But here you can see from the 2021 base grant ADA for ADA funding of 7,702, we have the mega COLA being applied at 5.07%. So it increases our funding from 2021 to 21-22 to 8,092. Then there's the grade span adjustment, the GSA of 10.4% for TK 2-3 for our district. That's another $842, giving us a new adjusted base grant per student ADA funding of $8,934. Then there are two factors, supplemental and concentration grant factors, that are added on top of that, based on the number of English learners that we have, foster youth, homeless, and those who are eligible for free and reduced meal plans. The one additional item that's being added in the May revise is the new concentration grant. Under this particular grant, the governor wants to increase the factor for concentration grant from 50% to 65%. This is fantastic because for districts like us who have a high concentration grant population, this could be additional money for us. Unfortunately, this is one of the items that the legislature is not agreeing on with the governor. They actually want to push it to the supplemental grant. They want to increase that from 20% to 23.3%. We don't know how much that's going to be for a district of our size. We don't have enough information, and also we don't have the ability to adjust the local control funding formula for that piece. But we were able to calculate the impact of 50% going to 65% increase would be for our district. If this is going to be ongoing, it's going to be another 2.2 million in the budget year of 21-22, another 2.1 million in the next year, and also 2.1 million in the third year for our district. Of course, the governor doesn't want to give this money out without having some strings attached to it. So obviously he wants to make sure that these dollars are going to additional staff to create deeper connections with our students and provide more supports for our students. So additional revenue of 2.2 million is going to be additional revenue, additional expenditures of 2.2 million, excuse me.
Jason? Just real quick before we switch slides, can you explain to us the difference between the concentration grant and the supplemental?
Yes. So in our LCFF formula, it basically looks at our UPP, unduplicated pupil percentage. How many of our students are either English learners, foster youth, English learners, or those who are eligible for free and reduced meal plans. For all of those students that are unduplicated, so they can't have both categories, right? They can only apply for one category. We'll get an extra 20% on the supplemental grant factor. So 8,934 is our adjusted base grant for 21-22. 20% of that is $1,787. That's the supplemental grant. So for each student that accounts for an additional ADA under UPP for supplemental grant, we get another $1,787. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Then in the concentration grant, it says, okay, if you have a high dense population that meets this demographic, that's above 55% of your student population, then you're going to get another $4,467. And that's just for the TK3 column that I'm looking at, just to help explain how this works. Obviously, there's a different fact or a different dollar amount for the 4 to 6 grade spans and 7 through 8. But again, it's still 20% of the adjusted base grant. So if you take
In our district,
so if you take 50% of the 8,934, that gets you the 4,467. If you take 50% of the 8,214 in the 4 through 6 grade span, that gives you the 4,107. So, and so on and so forth.
our UPP is what percent?
So our unduplicated pupil percentage is about, hold on a second.
One last one.
81.7%. Yeah.
That would benefit us greatly.
Yes.
Because funds are in flux so much.
Mhm.
So even these funds right now might change in the next 2 to 3 months, 6 months. Would you say, or would it?
So the big question here is, one, will the governor's wish of changing that 50% concentration grant to 65% happen? Or will the legislature win and change it from 20% in the supplemental grant to 23.3%? The reason why the legislature wants to do it that way is that more districts will benefit under this formula change than we use it under the concentration grant. So we're hoping that this is going to change within the next month. Either option is positive for us. One will be probably more advantageous for us.
Which is the concentration grant one.
Correct.
So I think to Board Member Sanchez's point, I think the dollar amount that we're seeing for 21-22 is probably right around what we're gonna see in the budget. The out years are always sort of that unknown, right? And so that's where, you know, if the economy continues to be at the same level and those kinds of things, then, but, you know, that's where, you know, the business department and everybody sort of just plugs in the numbers as we know the information now. But things can change. But at least for 21-22, I think we can be comfortable that sort of that number that the state is allocating for K-12 is pretty solid.
So in terms of our LCFF formula, so in total dollars for 21-22, this slide here summarizes how much we expect to receive under LCFF revenue, 75.6 million for the year 21-22. with a projected funded ADA of 6,547 ADA. And I want to just take a pause here because this is funded ADA and not actual ADA. This is based on looking at the hold harmless provision that was put in place for the last year and a half. And basically we're looking back at 2019-20 ADA numbers to come up with this projected funded ADA amount. If you actually look at our projected ADA for next year, 21-22, it's going to be closer to 6,120. Right, yes.
When are they going to count our actual ADA in 21-22?
I'm sorry, say that again?
When are they going to use our actual ADA instead of our funded ADA?
So under the LCFF formula, there's a provision. You take the greater of prior year or current year. So in a district of our size and our current trend of declining enrollment, our current year won't be taking place until the future year, if you will.
What year is that?
So in year 22-23 is when we're going to see the big drop in terms of our LCFF numbers.
Or gain?
Or gain if we are growing.
Come on, think positive.
Or gain. But that's when we're going to see a big deficit or a big drop in our LCFF funding formula.
If it occurs.
23,
right?
Because the hold harmless provision no longer applies.
And it still could be a gain.
And it still could be a gain.
Okay, thank you.
On this slide, I just wanted to highlight that cash flow deferrals are still in play, but a lot of them have been redacted or removed for the year 22-23. And just as a point of information, deferrals are basically an IOU from the state saying that we know that we owe you X amount of dollars in this particular fiscal year, but we're going to pay you next year. So in this slide, the June 22 deferral is still in play. So 100% of the money that we're supposed to receive in June 22 is going to be moved to the next fiscal year. So I talked about the different types of COLAs that are going to be applied next year. Special education is getting the compounded COLA, not the mega COLA. And it's a wonder why they're only getting the compounded COLA, because the mega COLA adds 1% to help deal with the enormous increase in our unemployment insurance tax rate that we're going to have to pay as a district. Special education has employees as well. There has to be a UI factor for those employees as well. So why don't they get the mega COLA like the LCFF formula? Advocates are fighting for that to happen, and hopefully in the adopted budget for the state, the mega COLA will be applied to both special ed, LCFF, and all other categorical programs, because they were all affected by the suspension of the COLA in 2021.
Jason, the special education grant, is that something that we are eligible for?
Yes, all districts will be eligible for the special education early intervention grant. We're waiting on final numbers from SELPA to figure out what that means for our district. But yeah, everyone will be eligible for that, assuming they have special education students. Targeted intervention grant. This is in addition to AB 86. As you know, AB 86 created the in-person instruction grant as well as the extended learning opportunity grant. This is an additional grant that shall be used for any purpose that supports targeted and research tested academic interventions for our students. It's one-time dollars. 2.6 billion is being moved towards this grant by the governor, but we don't know how much that's going to be for our district because we haven't received more detailed information from the governor. Hopefully by the time the state adopts their budget, the trail bill language will be already prepared, and then we have a better idea of what that means for us. The in-person instruction health and safety grant is also a new grant. Another $2 billion going towards this to help make sure that we can open up schools safely and make sure that we keep everyone safe throughout the instructional day. The one thing I wanted to point out with these two grants is that the legislature actually rejected both of these grants. So we don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day in June, but hopefully if they're going to reject these two grants, hopefully there's something to replace these two grants that help benefit school districts, whether it's eliminating deferrals or providing additional funding under Prop 98 for per student funding. We've talked about the expanded learning opportunities grant for our district. It's $5 million. So I'm not going to spend much on this because we've talked about it at length during the last board meeting. Distance learning is something new for 21-22 in the sense that the governor wants to push in-person instruction. That is the in his opinion, the best way to teach our students, and I think most of us would agree with that. If a district wants to do some type of distance learning model, he wants to use the independent study model as the way that we frame how distance learning is going to happen for our students. Some of the requirements, though, for independent study are going to change, including the district needs to provide technology, internet connectivity, and dedicated rigorous curriculum, develop and implement a framework of tiered re-engagement strategies for students not meaningfully participating in instruction and learning, track and record daily student participation and interaction with teachers, plan a return for students to in-person instruction expeditiously at the request of their parents, weekly synchronous interaction, daily live interaction for all pupils. And lastly, the CDE is going to develop a template to report daily participation and weekly engagement that minimizes the workload for our teachers. This is something that I think is very interesting as well. This could really change the way school districts look. The summer and after school programs that the governor is proposing will include, but not only include, services that expand the learning opportunity to 9 hours. When you look at the total number of instructional minutes per day, it will require school district to have 30 days of summer school, also with 9 hours of expanded learning instruction. It could also change the ratio for students in TK to K from up down to 10 to 1, and also for students in grades 1 through 6 down to 20 to 1. There's been a lot of talk about universal transitional kindergarten, not only in our state, but in the nation. And obviously the governor wants to push this as well. He's looking at a phased implementation of this plan starting in 22-23, going out to 24-25 to full implementation. The legislature wants to actually extend this out 2 years. So we'll see what happens when the state adopts its budget. But both the legislature and the governor are in support of universal transition kindergarten for all four-year-olds, excuse me.
And if I could, Franklin-McKinley actually has been at the forefront of this, and we are in our second year of offering universal TK. So we have been serving 4-year-olds now for the past 2 years. That's our youngest TK started this year in EduCare, but since we were in distance learning, it actually hasn't been physically there, but we'll be there this upcoming year to support our youngest learners through the best practices that are there at EduCare.
For our universal TK that we're doing in our district currently, with the funding coming in, is that going to pay for the whole thing?
Yeah, so the way it's worked before, we don't get paid for students ADA until they turn 5. And so, but this board, when we brought this forward, felt that given the space, we should prioritize 4-year-olds. And so we sort of had a tiered. And then last year we just said everybody's gonna be able to get in. So we have been paying out of the general fund for those 4-year-olds that didn't turn 5 early enough, because there comes a point where if the student turns 5, P2, remind me, Jason?
Yeah, if the student turns 5, I think by January 1, then
we no longer get paid for that, even if they turn 5 after that, because that's when they cut off, and that's where the funding comes from. So this will help us defray the cost. And in the past, we had some funds that came from the county supervisors through the universal access pilot that helped us defray some of the cost. But this obviously then will completely fund that moving forward.
That increase our ADA also? Increase our ADA? It should, right?
It should, because then we would, more families know that this is a accessible. Part of this also is increasing the time of TK. As you know, right now, TK is shorter than kinder. And so for some families, dropping off the student for a couple of hours and then picking them up becomes a challenge. So I do believe that this would open the door for more families to access and therefore increase our enrollment. That we know that once they come to us, they have a higher probability of staying with us long-term. So to board member Rodriguez's point, this would, potentially be an enrollment increase for our district.
So at the same time, it saves the district money, possibly increases enrollment. The other thing I want to talk about was the summer and after school programs. So we'll start before that one. The funding for that was coming out of grants for us to do after school programs, right? And summer programs.
Yeah, so for the choral program, we get a lot of local grants from partners of FMSD to help pay for those programs. And for our summer school programs, we utilize our Title I funds typically to pay for our summer programs.
So with this funding, additional funding coming in from the state, we would also save from Title I funds.
Right.
On these programs as well.
Correct.
And increase our ability to serve more students. Because right now, the ACES grant has a cap per school of how many slots we can offer. And so that's one of the reasons why we go out for additional funds. So we've been fortunate to partner with Applied Materials that annually has been giving us $250,000 to increase our availability after school. So this would just add to
that
and give more parents the option of an after school program.
I like this budget.
Yeah, however, though, with the saving money in the Title I funds, that's restricted money, so we couldn't move it to the general fund. It would still be restricted to Title I eligible programs, right?
Correct.
Correct.
We would have to-
Okay,
Right.
so we just got to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just expand the scope, right?
So one of the things that I didn't mention relating to this is that once this program is fully implemented, it's going to be a 5-year implementation plan. The money will be put into LCFF and the concentration grant formula. So it'll be ongoing for districts that have a high concentration of unduplicated pupils. So one of the things that school services always likes to remind us of, and also the County Office of Education, is to make sure that we have adequate reserves. Here's some information or data on typical reserve percentages of unified schools, elementary schools, and high schools. The Government Finance Officers Association also recommends having 2 months worth in your reserve, or about 17%. So just a kind of a barometer of what we should think about as we look at our reserves going forward. There are still major challenges that we need to consider in our multi-year projection. So here's a list of some of those. Obviously, declining enrollment. We can offset it with increasing our enrollment, and other things that we need to be concerned about and make sure that we have funds available to meet these challenges going forward. This is just a reminder, multi-year projections are not a crystal ball. They are basically looking at the information that we know as of now and trying to put together a multi-year projection. These things will change. And hopefully we'll have great information that helps our district out in the future, and we'll provide that to the board in future presentations. Multi-year projections obviously are impacted by these factors, some positive and some negative, and obviously we work towards identifying those and quantifying those and making plans to adjust. And as Governor Brown always did, he wants us to budget responsibly. So just a reminder as we go through our budget process. I'm going to skip this slide in the interest of time. These are the next steps related to our budget cycle. June 15th, the legislature brings the governor a final budget for him to either approve, disapprove, make line item veto, so on and so forth. On the 22nd, the district will have an opportunity to adopt its budget. And then in the future, we try to look towards updating our demographic study, providing the 45-day budget revision, which I mentioned earlier, and a couple of other items. So to capitalize on all that information, I provided a couple more slides as to what this means for Franklin-McKinley School District. So when we look at our multi-year projection and compare it to second interim, here are the increases. The increases are fueled, by the mega COLA under the local control funding formula. The only problem with this is that the $820,000 increase that we see for the year 21-22 is going to be fully utilized almost by the UI increase, which is about $720,000. So hopefully in the future, our UI doesn't increase so dramatically. We know that current projections show it decreasing in the third year, 22-23, but we'll keep a close eye on that. As far as other assumptions that we're utilizing to build our multi-year projection, we looked at additional reductions in staffing, basically due to declining enrollment in the year 22, 23, 23, 24, and also a placeholder of about $500,000 in 23, 24, so that we can meet our 3% reserve as required by the state. It's a placeholder right now. Nothing has been specifically identified because we know that there's a lot of unknowns relating to the May revise, and we don't know what the final state adopted budget is going to be. So right now we have a placeholder. We have a list of items that can be utilized utilized for reduction decisions. But until we have a final state budget, it's going to be a placeholder for now. But I'm happy to report we don't have any reductions related to the 21-22 budget year. We also still have increasing CalSTRS and CalPERS rates. You'll notice that in year 21, 22 to 22, 23, we have a significant jump in the contribution rates as an employer from 16.92 to 19.1 for CalSTRS. And in CalPERS, it goes from 22.91 to 26.10. So think about what you're seeing here on a more global level, if you will. We have a huge decline in our revenue under LCFF from year 21, 22 to 22, 23, and we have a huge increase in our expenditures at the same time for CalSTRS and CalPERS. So that's going to create a lot of budgeting challenges for districts going forward. Here are some other key assumptions that we utilized, including FTE, LCFF numbers, which I talked about, UI increase for each of the 3 years, also the projected ADA versus funded ADA. All of that culminates in a high level multi-year projection here for 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24. And again, it shows our total revenue of 96.03 million in 21, 22, and the huge decline in year 22, 23 to 91.5, and then kind of leveling off in the out year of 23, 24. We still project deficit spending in all of these years, fueled a lot by the one-time dollars that we received this year that are going to be spent in the future, as well as I talked about, increases in expenditures and decline in our revenue. Assumptions not in the budget are listed here because we just don't have enough information to figure out how much this is going to be for our district. But as the trail bill language comes out and we have more information, we will put that into the multi-year projection. This slide is called adjusted MYP. As we look towards building our 45-day budget revision, we may need to make adjustments in the out years. And why is that? In this particular example, ESSER 3 funding, we learned of the final number that's going to be allocated to FMSD after we put together this presentation and did all the SACS forms for the state. But under ESSER 3, 18.3 million is going to be the dollar amount. We're going to get 74% of that money in 21-22. Hopefully we'll get all of it within that fiscal year. But it has been determined that 74% of it is going to be in 21-22. Assuming we get all of it in that first year, we're going to have actual expenditures related to those dollars. So we're going to have an ending fund balance that's going to be somewhat inflated, if you will, in the first year, because we know that we're going to spend that money over a 3-year period. In addition, concentration grant augmentation, I talked about the 2.2 million. If the factor changes from 50% to 65%, that could be another 2.2 million, but there's going to be both a 2.2 million in revenue and a 2.2 million in expenditures. So in terms of our ending fund balance, it has no impact, but it does increase our total expenditures. Why is that important? When we try to calculate the reserve percentage, we're taking a look at our unrestricted reserve, those dollars in our fund balance that are not spoken for, and then we divide it by our total expenditures. If that denominator, total expenditures, keeps increasing, then our reserve percentage will continue to go down, even if the number remains the same. But in a 3-year projection, just looking at these two factors, we could require additional reductions in the 3rd year, 23-24. As a matter of procedure, the budget overview for parents has been created under Ed Code. It requires school districts to develop a LCFF BOP, or budget overview for parents, in conjunction with the LCAP and be finalized by July 1. The state requires the BOP to use language that is understandable and accessible to parents in order to provide transparency. I have included slides or snapshots of the BOP for your presentation for today. The full document is within the attachments to the agenda. And obviously, Norma did a fantastic job talking about the LCAP and what it means for our district, what funds are included in there, what expenditures are included in there, and what is not included in there. And that's also summarized here in the bottom. So again, these are the next steps in the budget cycle, and I will open it up for additional questions.
Board members, any questions for the budget? Good.
Just one quick question on the first slide in the appendix.
Yes.
It shows the enrollment trend.
Mhm.
So the independent charters are projected to experience a declining enrollment as well, right?
Yes, this is looking at our current trend of enrollment from 14-15 to 2021. And yes, they're expecting to have a decline. The whole state is expecting to decline. It's been declining for the last 2 years. And so they're expecting to see a decline as well. Some charters may have a bump and some may have a decline, but overall within our borders, decline.
Okay, that's it.
Questions?
Just want to say thank you.
Mhm.
It's an overview. Ask a real speculative question, I guess, in terms of the cost, retirement costs. Is that something, and I know that we're looking at the future, I don't mind that.
Mhm.
That's something maybe the state of California take maybe some of the costs away from it.
So I think, yes, that's probably going to be something that happens in the future. I know that the legislature is looking to try to reduce some of these contribution rates in the future, in part with this state adopted budget. They're trying to reduce it for this year, 21-22. We don't know if it's going to happen. They have done it in the past. The rates that we had to pay in the last couple of years have been reduced because the state has brought down that contribution rate. So it can happen again. Right now, the governor is looking to have more areas being addressed as opposed to the retirement contribution rate.
Be nice. Thank you.
Jason, I had a quick question about on slide 37. So in terms of I know we have to submit our budget, and typically, I mean, to be qualified, it's the 3% reserve in the third year. So does this mean? Would we be able to submit this now without?
This is just an example. This is not the multi-year projection that we're going to submit to the county at this point in time. The one that we are submitting is this one.
Okay.
So this was just an illustration, the one that had the additional.
So it's just something to keep an eye on that we
keep an eye on.
need to make sure we're above the.
Exactly. So I'm trying to, I guess, brace you if there is some type of additional cuts that we need to add in the 45-day budget revision. Once we know all the trailer bill language, you have an idea of why that's happening.
Yeah, I think to Jason's point is, I think what we're saying is that very likely we will be bringing coming to the board with a 45-day revision, because there's so many unknowns, unlike other probably years. And so because of how the ending balance reserve is calculated, we may have to show in the third year out some reduction if that is how it plays out.
That's right.
Yes, it's just really shocking to see like the 25% reserve all the way to a below 3%.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of influx of one-time dollars that we're spending out over the course of the multi-year projection. So it's, yeah, that's what happens. If you get the money one time and you spend it.
Thank you for the very in-depth presentation.
Yeah, no, I asked all my questions during the presentation. Honestly, very thorough. It's like the budget committees. So.
We will, and this is not voting on this. So we'll go on to item 7, information, discussion, and action items. Item 7.01 for the year 2021, 2022, the proposed budget for the Franklin-McKinley School District.
That was just the item that the presentation.
Oh, okay. I see. We moved on. So 7.02. Wait, so this is sorry.
Yes, 702 is correct.
Okay, we're not voting on.
No.
All right, so we will go to item 7.02, the discussion and approval for the date and set the time of the special board meeting for filling the vacancy on the Franklin-McKinley School District Governing Board.
So we're bringing this forward just to make sure that the board could have a discussion. I know the timeline that was presented at the last board meeting indicated that the board would have a special board meeting on the 29th to interview and consider the provisional appointment. So we want to make sure that was understood. And if not, for the board to decide on a different date. The consideration for that is that if we have a number of candidates, would the board be okay with going late into the evening or into the night? If we started at 5 o'clock, and if more members could even start earlier than that. Last time, I believe we had it on a Saturday, and we started a little early just to make sure that we had enough time for the consideration of all the candidates. So we're bringing this forward for full discussion with the board to either leave it on the 29th and then establish what the start time of the board meeting would be, or whether you would like to move it to the Saturday prior to the 29th, which would be the 26th. So it's up for discussion.
Board Member Rodriguez.
Okay, so I'm kind sort of confused, maybe because I didn't quite listen to everything, but from what I'm reading is on the June 22nd, we determine the number of finalists and who they are, correct? And then the advisory committee interviews those finalists. And then we interview them again. Not again, we just interview them on the 29th. So if there's only 4 finalists, that's not going to go that late, will it?
No, but not knowing.
I miss.
Well, I part of this, and you're correct. The only concern is we don't know right now the number of candidates, and so if it does end up being a large number of candidates like there was before.
Candidates or finalists?
Or finalists, even finalists.
So we could have more than.
So last time the board authorized the committee to send up to 7 finalists for the board to consider. And so if that is the case, then 7 would be quite a number for the board to do in one evening and not go too late. So again, it's not knowing how many total candidates will be applying and how many finalists will come forward.
The committee is the board, so.
Well, the advisory committee, I mean.
Well, the advisory committee is not choosing the finalists. They're just going to interview them, right?
They narrow it down to the number that the board chooses.
Huh?
So if there's 20 applicants, the board has said that the committee interviews and selects the 7 finalists. That was last time. And those 7 were moved to the board for consideration. That was the previous process.
Got it. I remember. So the board does not decide who the finalists are. They only decide the number of finalists to be recommended by the committee.
Correct.
Got it. So if we said we want, I guess based on the number of applicants.
Correct.
So if we said let's say there were 30 applicants. We said give us 5 or 7 finalists. And depending, that could take a while in the evening. Okay, I'm sorry I had to take time. I'm a year older, so.
Yeah. And part of this is because we also want to ahead of time, obviously publish the date and time of when the board will meet. And so does it make sense to move it to the Saturday so it is well known ahead of time, not only for the public, for the candidates when they have to make sure that they're available. So if they're applying, they know that on this day, on this time, I have to be available, otherwise I can't be considered. So that's the point. That's the reason why we're bringing it now versus waiting longer to establish the date and time.
So if we did it, okay, if we did it on a Saturday, we're looking in the 4th of July weekend.
It would be June 26th.
So it'd be the prior Saturday, the 26th.
Yes.
So if the advisory committee met Wednesday, that would still be enough time, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm open either way.
So when the advisory committee interviews the applicants on a Wednesday, does that information get to the board by the 26th so we can understand what the advisory committee is recommending? Or how do we work with the advisory committee interviews?
So the way it works is that the advisory committee does not rank, but rather say, like, again, if the board says 7,
Oh, these
they'll
are the
say
7
7
finalists.
applicants. Then we do not forward that information until that day. So you would come in to review all of that ahead of time. And then their application is not extensive from that standpoint. Then we would establish the questions. And we on the 22nd will bring an agenda item like we did last time to have a list of questions that you all can discuss. And then those are finalized. And then you would ask those same questions of every candidate. Once you're done with the deliberate, with all the candidates, then the board deliberates in open session. And then there's a vote that takes place after the deliberation. So if there's consensus there, then that concludes the appointment process, and that person would take office July 1st.
Don't we need to interview? We must be in open session to interview
Yes,
them. Okay,
yes.
got it.
Any preferences? I'm either on being able to start early enough on the 29th or just moving it to Saturday.
Maybe ask the people who work. On or Carrie? Is 5 o'clock too early, or is that what you meant?
Well, actually, we would be asking probably to start earlier than 5 because of just not knowing the number of candidates.
I'm free. I can start at any time.
Well, just based on, let's say 7 applicants, right? That would take upwards to 4 to 5 hours. Would that be a good estimate?
So if I remember correctly, I think we allocated 45 minutes per candidate last time. So if you ended up, if you just think about that, and if it's 7 candidates, it's really way into the night from that standpoint. You can't participate, sorry.
Oh.
I think Saturday would be okay. And then we could start earlier, right? We could start at 11.
Correct. Yeah, we can start. I just would advise not to start like at 8 o'clock or something like that. But
I
certainly.
think last time we started around in the morning time, 11 a.m.
I think last time we started around 10. I think it's, if I remember correctly.
I could get up by 10.
Does that work for other board members? Board member Sanchez?
We're looking at June 29th or Saturday, right?
The 26th.
The 26th.
Saturday, the 26th.
That is the
26th is Saturday. Rudy, does that work?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yes, I'm okay with that.
Superintendent, that would.
Yes.
I'm also fine doing it at 29th or like starting early, if that's another option.
Yeah, I mean, if
Probably.
we ended up with the same
9 to 10.
number of candidates the last time, yes, it would be late into the evening.
Because I'm just looking at my schedule. And I think I have something scheduled on the 26th, right? I know we can. So I don't know if I can convince the board to start at 3 or 4.
I mean, if we wanted to do it during the week, I think that I would advise to start around 2, just so that there's plenty of time. And, you know, again, we're not going late into the evening. I mean, I think that this is also in consideration of the public that would want to either view or participate in the process. So that would be my recommendation, that at minimum, we would start at 2, just so that it's not late into the evening,
Right.
you know, too late.
And that's just for my own selfish reasons. So I just looked at my calendar and I realized I'm busy. So I can make my work schedule work around the Tuesday. We need to start early. At 2 p.m.
How does that work with your schedule, Maimona?
Make work.
You can make it work because,
Not school.
Yes,
oh, that's right. Yeah, because either what day is fine, Maureen, go ahead.
And I think that what we could do, obviously on the 22nd, we will know the number of candidates. And for whatever reason, we don't have a large pool of candidates, then we could then decide to not start as early to accommodate, you know, your work schedule. But at least if we establish it as a 2 o'clock, then all candidates need to know that they'd have to be available as early as 2 o'clock, right? Because it's harder to be available earlier than say, okay, now you can come in at 3 or 4 because you already had planned to be available at, you know, since 2 o'clock. Does that make sense? Because they have to have the whole window, because they don't know exactly the order that they will be interviewed.
Okay.
need to.
I'm curious, do we have any applicants yet?
I have not received a single
Oh, okay.
application up to this point.
Just curious.
They are due next Friday. They have to be in my office by 4 o'clock next Friday. Either because they either emailed to me, hand delivered to our office, or received in the mail in the district by 4 o'clock. That's the rule.
So 10 days.
Last time we got the bulk of them within about 3 or 4 days of the deadline. So, and it has been published in the Mercury News and all our social media, our website, constant contacts. It has been far-reaching in terms of our community that this is available for anybody that is interested.
Okay, so with the new time we need to amend it.
Well, we hadn't established the time. That's why I wanted to make sure that we set the date, and then in speaking to the board president, we realized that we hadn't set a time, and not knowing, again, because of our schedule, how early we wanted to have the discussion, and if we needed to move it to Saturday, then move it to Saturday. So what I'm hearing is that it will stay on the 29th, and that the start time will be 2 o'clock.
Well, 2 o'clock, dependent on how many applicants.
Correct. Yeah, but for now, that's how it's going to be published, so that anybody that is applying knows that that's as early as they have to be available. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we need to vote on this?
Probably it's better. I don't think that you have to, because the date didn't change, but just for transparency purposes, it might not be a bad idea.
Okay, so I'll move to approve the time meeting on the 29th to 2 p.m. That's the only change we made, right?
Yes.
Second.
The approval for the time on June 29th, the provisional appointment and vacancy process has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And one one abstention. That motion passes. We will now go to item 8, consent items under 25,000. Members of the public may address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of the items in accordance with board bylaw 9323. Individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. Do you have any public comments on this item? Board members, please let me know if there's any items you'd like to pull. Otherwise, I will accept a motion.
Couple of questions, a real quick question on 7.
8.07, right?
8.07.
So 8.07 will become action item 11.06. Any other items, board members? I'll accept a motion.
Move to approve consent items 8.01 through 8.06 and 8.08 through 8.1.
Items 8.01 through 8.06 and 8.08 through 8.13 have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously. We'll go to item 9, consent items over 25,000. Again, members of the public may address the board on consent items before the board's consideration of items. In accordance with board bylaws 9323, individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. Any public comments? Are there any items that board members that you'd like to pull? Otherwise,
Madam President, can I pull item 9.07?
yes. 9.07 will now become action item 11.07. Any other items, board members? Motion.
We move to approve consent items 9.01 to 9.06 and then 9.08.
Items 9.01 through 9.06 as well as 9.08 have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will go to item 10, construction items. Members of the public may address the board on consent items before the board consideration of the items in accordance with board bylaws 9323. Individual remarks will be limited to 3 minutes each unless otherwise stipulated. Board members, are there any items you'd like to pull? I'll accept a motion when you're ready.
Move to approve construction items 10.01 through 10.
Second.
Construction items 10.01 through 10.10 have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will go to item 11, action items. Item 11.01, the personnel report.
Madam President, I move that the personnel report be approved as submitted and that A, the resignation for the following employees be approved. Jennifer Stewart, teacher at Dahl, effective 6/30/21. Angela Ahuja, teacher at Shirakawa, effective 6/30/21.
Second.
The personnel addendum has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will go to item 11.02, the May 25th, 2021 board meeting minutes. Board members, hopefully you've had a chance to review those minutes. I'll accept a motion when you are ready on that.
Move to approve the May 25th board meeting minutes.
The May 25th, 2021 board meeting minutes have been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes 4 with 1 abstention. We'll now go to item 11.03, resolution 2021-22, board compensation for a missed meeting.
I'd like to move to approve item 11.03 resolution for 2021-22 board compensation for missed meeting.
Second.
Item 11.03 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And that motion passes 4 with 1 abstention. We'll now go to item 11.04, reporting on the delegating authority to take the necessary action to protect students and staff from the spread of coronavirus. Superintendent Cruz?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to report back to the board that we have sent the letters to the families of the students that have been accepted to the summer program. There's over 1,000 students that will be coming in for our summer program, both from ESY all the way to from TK through 8th grade. We have students that may have not been able to attend summer school because we didn't have enough teachers, but we've contracted with Choral and Audacity, which is a nonprofit arts program that will be offering a full day summer camp type program at Dahl. And that was just so that we made sure that the students that we got applications for would get something, some support, something during the summer. And so we were able to accomplish it that way. So I'm glad to be able to now, excuse me, provide that service to our students and sort of get them reacclimated to school, being in classrooms, being together, and once again following the protocols that we have in place right now with the students that have returned for in person and that have been with our choral program all year long. That'll again be a sort of a test drive for the fall. Also, we are moving forward with full return. If you listen to the legislature, if you listen to the governor, you listen to the public health agencies, we've been advised to plan for the full return of students. What is still unknown is what safety protocols will be in place. The two that keep coming up as something that we still will have to implement is the wearing of masks and ensuring that there's proper ventilation. The one that is still unknown and that can change our plans is whether we have to socially distance, whether students have to socially distance. If they do, then that changes our ability to full return because we would not be able to house the number of students by in each classroom based on our classroom size, and so that would change the plans for a hybrid model to a hybrid model. So we're anticipating, because everybody is indicating that we should be fully returning, that requirement may go away, but that has not been established by either the county public health or the California public health at this time. But we are moving forward with the full return for in-person for 21-22. We have posted for 2 independent study instructors, excuse me, to be able to offer families the opportunity to stay in somewhat of a distance learning. You heard Assistant Superintendent Van about the changes that are being recommended for independent study. So we're waiting for some clarification around that, but we know that there will be some families that are not ready to come back, and so we have to be ready for that. And so we have posted for 2 instructors. As soon as the state makes the changes in regards to independent study, we will send that information out and survey the families to see how many actually are going to want to apply and stay for the duration of the year. It is important for them to know that it really will be for the duration of the year, because we would not be able to shift if there was a large number of families that wanted that option. So again, we're eager to return. I know our students and our families and our staff are looking forward to the return, but we also know that we have to understand the conditions and understand that there's still some safety guidelines that we'll have to follow, between now and August, when some of those things become more clear. We will be able to share that with the public. We plan on having another round of town hall meetings the last week of June, after the governor announces on June 15th what reopening means in California. And then subsequent to that, in July, as we get closer, to have further discussion with stakeholders in regards to how the reopening will look like as we get closer to that. I'm open to any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Superintendent Cruz, for those updates. We will now go to item 11.05, the February 22nd, 2022 board meeting.
Yeah, so we bring this forward for the board's consideration. The calendar committee selected February 22nd as a classified holiday. And that is to allow provide in Franklin-McKinley what is known as Ski Week. And so in the past, we had the 2 consecutive Mondays off as part of the holidays. And in order to make that week work, the one holiday was moved to the Tuesday, the 22nd. So since that is an official holiday for the district and a shutdown, we want to bring to the board 3 options of how to address that change. The first option is to only have one board meeting in February, so eliminate it completely. And we have that situation in November and December because of the holidays. Or move the February 22nd meeting to Wednesday, February 23rd, which is off schedule because all our regular board meetings are on Tuesday. Or move the 22nd meeting to March 1st, that then when subsequently move the other 2, because March is a long month, we would then have 3 board meetings in March. So those are the options that we bring forward to the board for your consideration.
Can you explain us the impact of number 1 on the cabinet?
The impact on that is that we would have to make sure that we bring to the board any actions that require March 15 notice to that meeting, because we would not have the 22nd, and we would not have a meeting prior to March 15th. So it really is incumbent upon the administration to make sure that we don't miss any important actions that are required by Ed Code regarding the release of staff or the non-reelection of staff, and that all would have to come on the 8th. So just a couple of weeks earlier than normal.
Preferences, board members?
I think number 1 is a safe option because I don't recall us doing a whole lot in February anyway, so.
It's the simplest to follow.
Agree with that, unless one, you can let us know maybe a little bit ahead of time if indeed versus ahead of time, schedule it for the.
And I was just going to say, if we get close to the date and we realize that there's action items that need to be addressed, the board could call a special board meeting. We would have to verify that the actions that the board would be wanting to take can be taken in a special board meeting, because there are some actions that are only able to be taken on a regularly scheduled meeting. So but we certainly would know that in advance for sure.
And we could call a special board meeting for the 23rd Wednesday or even the 24th Thursday if we had to. So I think number 1 is safe to do based on the weight of the agendas during that month is fairly light.
I'm with option number 1 as well then. Because we do have the flexibility as a board to call a special board meeting if one needs more, or the administration needs more time to decide on anything, right? So.
Make a motion on that?
Move to approve, choose option 1 from action item 11.05 to have only one meeting in February. Set for February 8th.
Second. Item 11.05, moving to keep one meeting in February, scheduled for February 8th, 2022. Has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We'll now go to item 11.06, which was previously item 8.07. Board Member Sanchez, did you have questions on this item?
No, I just had a question because it's an interesting program. I read up a little bit on the internet. It's helping kids, especially in the area of suicide prevention, substance abuse, and these different areas. It's one to be at a comfortable level. Make sure that our parents would be okay or give their approval for the children involved in such a program, because it is a sensitive program. I know the kids go through training and so on, and what is this program going to be for Silverdale and Bridges primarily, or own to Mill Springs, Stonegate, where there's theaters?
Yeah, so this is a designed research-based program for middle school and high school. So all our middle school students would be participating with the support of the social workers. So the social workers would be the ones that would go through the extensive training in how to set up peer leaders, how to support peer leaders. So they're not out there on their own, just counseling. This is not for them to counsel students, but rather how to create an environment, a school environment, where students are being supported, and that if there's a concern, that they would speak up and they would be able to get the necessary help that they need. So this is not intended for them to take the role of somebody like the social worker.
And the parents would ultimately give an approval, I guess.
Correct. In order to sign up as mentors and go through the training as well. From that standpoint, yes.
There was another program that I looked up because it was similar to a HOPE program. It's also extensively, especially in Utah.
Mhm.
Anyway, it was interesting reading up.
Yeah, and this is our attempt to write, because we are hearing that our middle school students and through this pandemic have been impacted greatly in regards to their anxiety, mental health, and these things. And so we feel that this is at the right time right now in terms of, and then we are adding social workers at every site. And so with all that support, that this can be critical for us to provide the support for our students in middle school.
You know what I would like to have eventually once the program's in place, so on, and takes place at the schools, then a brief summary.
Yeah, no, we'll be happy to bring back sort of not just how successful, but student voice. I mean, because this is rooted in student voice. Very, very similar. If you're familiar with the Tupe grant, where students really are the driving force behind students not smoking, all those things. And because we know that students listen to students, right? And so that is sort of the premise of this. So I'd be more than happy to bring to the board the student leaders that will be part of this to give you a presentation about how this has worked and how it may be impacting the schools.
Along this line, is there another will ambassador? Like 40 or 50. The same.
Yeah, there's a lot of, right, there's others that are, like, I believe that one is more on just on building leadership. This particular is about really addressing the mental health, those things that are facing our students beyond just leadership. So their training really is around supporting students and being able to provide that, seeking behaviors, right? So that people can seek help when they need it.
Motion on the item.
Make a motion on 11.06. Approval of contract with Sources Grant Agreement for Comprehensive Wellness Program that focuses on suicide prevention.
I'll second that motion. Item 11.06 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 11.07, which was previously item 9.07.
Yes. Juan, when was the last time we had a presentation from Bowler?
I believe this time last year is when we had the last presentation from the Director of Community Relations and it was actually the Director of Community Relations that did the presentation supported by Valer, yes.
So that's something I'll request in the agenda item request in the presentation from Valer.
Okay.
But in that, I just needed to see the metrics and like social media impact, how much Valer helped us along with Yelitsa back then. But I do want to question why we're doing a 2-year contract as opposed to a 1-year contract.
Like any other contract, the board and the district the district has the ability to not renew it, even if it's a 2-year. I just felt that, year over year, we keep bringing it forward. So this is not our first year with them. And so I went ahead and asked for a 2-year scope of work, and that's why we're doing it. But if at any given time, the district can suspend or end the contract for the provisions that are in the contract.
Is it the district that has that authority, or does this board?
They also can end the contract as provided in the contract in terms of the number of days of notice that we have to give each other for ending the contract.
Just based on that, I would feel much more comfortable if this contract was a year contract, because I would like to understand how much impact that Valer actually does for us. Back then, we did have Yelitsa, who was a star in gathering all the information, which with support from Valer helped her along the way. But now that we're completely relying on Valer, our community relations department, I would much rather have this a 1-year contract until we see those metrics from them.
That's
The contract not be.
well, the contract amount is for the 2 years, so that 168 really is the cost of the 2 years. It's not per year. So if what the board would like is to amend the recommendation and only approve the 21-22, that is possible. And so it would continue to be the same amount. It's just the 168 represents what the cost over the 2 years. So it's
half, right?
Whatever 168 divided by 2, 84,000.
4,000.
So that is the board's prerogative if you would like to reduce it to a 1-year contract.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with 1 year because unless there was a reason why we're proposing 2 years. Is that what they were asking for a 2-year contract, or?
We both, in our discussions said, look, we've been partnering for a while, and just the process of going back and to the board annually, why not put it up for 2 years?
Got it.
Knowing that the board, the district and Valer could end the contract before that if we chose to. So there's no, it's not where we are it's set and we can't get out of the contract if we felt that they weren't delivering on services or anything like that. Because we
Okay.
always can pull out of the contract.
Oh, okay, so, I mean, we've done 1 year before. If the board's comfortable doing 1 year, I'm fine with that. I'm comfortable with 2 years. One thing I want to remind the board, because I have college degrees in marketing and public relations. You cannot measure the impact of a firm like this doing this type of work on the district. It's not measurable. There's no metrics. You can't say, oh, well, we recruited this many students. We don't know that it was because of Olaire that they came to our district. It's just impossible to measure the impact of marketing or public relations on an organization or a business or company. So we're not, what they will provide a presentation for is what they did, what they have done, and the impact on social media, maybe number of impressions in social media or likes or, shares on, different social media platforms. They can do that because they have done our social media marketing as well. So they can do that, but there is no metric like this is what the impact has been on our school district. No, that's just impossible to do.
Like Rudy,
Advertising is an investment that we would make like our competitors make. And I think it is something that we need to do, even if we can't measure the impact that it has on the district, we just need to do it to stay competitive with the environment that we're now in with charter schools. Charter schools in our district spend 4 to 5 times more than we spend. So we're getting a good deal out of what we're doing. And the reason why charter schools are able to do that is because the corporations that sponsor these charter schools are able to pump the money into it. And that's why we've lost so much enrollment at the beginning of it. And thankfully, we've been able to tell our story the last 5 years that, and we were able to share our story that we've actually made it, that we have actually cut into, the competitiveness of the schools now. So, but there are no metrics. We can't measure.
No, for sure, Rudy. When I say metrics, it's exactly what you said. No, it's exactly what you said. Impressions, likes, social media impact, those counts, right? Those are what I would like to see. I'm not asking specifically metrics in terms of how much enrollment they got us into our school. I still am more comfortable with just a 1 year amendment, just because I would not like to have that awkward conversation of something coming up, us having to cancel a 1 year and a half in, right? So we can just do this a year by year, rolling basis. The board is satisfied with their presentation prior to their contract renewing. So, set a timeline in there, one, that prior to July 1st, 2021, to the board, present to us what they did for the whole school year. Sorry, yeah. Then, that would make the board feel more comfortable in seeing this come through as a consent item.
Yeah, that's fine. This year we did not have a full year contract with them, if you remember. It came late into the year, but we certainly can do so. And I know they're more than ready to provide the type of information that you're requesting in terms of the exposure. I think that's what, how we categorized it last time in the presentations, is that based on our newsletters, based on our social media feeds and all those, what was sort of the exposure that the district received in addition to, we get access to the media as well through their connection. So if I'm sure our community is tired of seeing me on TV, but that is part of that. And so the district gets a lot of exposure to that as well. And so we can certainly, bring a full presentation to the board, even from this year, even though it was only, I think that we've been working with them over the last 4 or 5 months, and bring that information early on in the fall, and then again in the spring as we get ready to look at the following year.
Thank you. So with that, I would like to make a motion to approve item 11.07 with an amendment to reduce the contract length to 1 year.
I'll second that.
Item 11.07 has been moved and seconded with the amendment of a one-year contract. 2021, 2022. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. We will now go to item 12, communications from the superintendent.
Yes, I actually said quite a bit on the other agenda item, so I just want to thank the board, our cabinet. We're finishing up our this school year that has been very, very challenging, and looking forward to the next couple of days when we get to celebrate our eighth graders, even though it's not the way we normally do it, but certainly they all will have celebrations. Actually, CCA had it last week. They always are way ahead of us because they are on the east side calendar. So they started the celebrations last week, and we will continue throughout the week and next week as well. Just celebrating our eighth graders as they go on to high school, and we'll continue to celebrate staff as well. All the schools have had their staff appreciation events. The board budget was used to allocate funds to each of the schools based on their enrollment. And so they've all, at least had something local to celebrate and to acknowledge the hard work that our staff have taken on this school year. So just very thankful that we are seeing the opportunity to come back in person. And so looking forward to what 21 and 22 is going to have in store for us.
Thank you, Superintendent Cruz. We will now go to item 13, communications from the Board of Education, 13.01, board member reports, and we'll start.
I had the opportunity to, my fifth grade teacher, who now teaches sixth grade at Leron, invited me to speak to his class, one of his classes on Asian American Heritage Month. I got 2 people to speak up in that class, which now I see like the struggles of distance learning. It's really, with the higher grades, it gets harder. I asked them if they were watching TV on the side or something, because this seems like they're pretty distracted. But just talking through the hardships of what I went through in the school district in terms of family and the struggles that we all had, hoping that it's similar to the majority of the students there. And then just talking about how much sacrifices our parents made to get us here, or our grandparents made. So I hope that spoke to them to some level, but or if they were paying attention. But it was always nice to see my former teacher anyway, so and his frustrations as well. Apart from that, I also went to the Staff Appreciation Day. Nice to see a few folks out and about for some free tacos, good tacos. And just good catching up with some folks. So that's my report.
Thank you. Rudy?
Okay, I did receive an invitation to attend a high school graduation for the 3 high schools within the Foundation for Hispanic Education. And one of the high schools is in our district, Luis Valdez Leadership Academy. And I found out that there were several students graduating from high school that attended our middle schools because they walked up to me, they recognized me, even with my mask on, and said hello, said, "I know you from elementary school." I said, "Oh, I'm old." But it was nice to see them graduating from high school. They're actually all of them were going to colleges. So I was very proud of them to see them graduate after shaking their hand during the eighth grade promotion. And the event was 3 high schools. It was held at PayPal Park. which is the former, which is still the Earthquake Soccer Stadium by a different sponsor. And I'll tell you, the PayPal Park Stadium has 4 to 5 graduations a day the last 2 weeks, so they know what they're doing. And
Where's that at?
it's Earthquake Stadium. Yeah, and they know what they're doing. So it was very well organized and very well done with the big Jumbotron screen and everything. So I attended that and it was fun it was last Saturday. So it only lasted a few hours. They're very efficient.
Thank you, Board Member Rodriguez. Board Member Sanchez?
Remember, maybe a future project. For college school. Yeah. I remind. We'll see. I should, the future. Couple of things real quick. Meeting last week with the schools, principal, Jose invited us to a family literacy graduation. When it was really nice, very nice. There was 9 parents graduated. The Latino Family Literacy Project involves parents doing a lot of meetings. Along with their kids, you know, being models. Children. There's a critical area of literacy. That was really nice. A great time. Food and all that. Very, very nice. You did a great work. The other thing, I did go to the ETA, the memorial, that we're able to move our schools to the following week. The people over 2,000. Memorial. Very sad. You're the board member. Did it. And adjourn, hopefully this being in there.
Thank you, Board Member Sanchez. Yes, I was going to ask that we do that as well. So we'll be sure, I think, adjourning the meeting in honor of the, in memory of the victims and of Adrian Baeza as well, who was a former student of Franklin-McKinley and Eastside Union High School District. Was able to visit the memorial that they had at the Yerba Buena High School time as well. I also just wanted to announce, make sure that the public was aware that the San Jose Public Library is distributing meals as part of their summer programming. So Monday through Friday from 12 to 1. They're giving out meals especially at the Tully and the Seven Trees branches, which are in part of our district. So just wanted to make that information aware of that information as well. We'll go to item 13.02, agenda item requests. Are there any requests?
Just real quick, because I know we only have less than 3 minutes before we have to extend the meeting. I'd like to see if we could add on the agenda periodically a report on the communication seal project. Maybe once a semester or something, have a report. Okay, thanks.
And the communications update from Valer.
Get those 2 items added to our queue here. We'll go to item 14, future business. There is no future business at this time. We'll go to 15, future meeting dates. 15.01 is our June 22nd meeting. 15.02 is our next meeting. Wow, August 10th, August 24th, September 14th. The respective times are there as well. Go to item 16, closed session. We're not returning to closed session, and so we are now at item 17, adjournment. I ask that we make the adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
So we will adjourn at All those in favor of adjourning, and this is again in memory of the victims of the VTA tragedy and shooting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously.